What I want to do next is turn to Obama himself. The heart of your book is a story, a narrative, placing Obama in the long context of liberalism, and especially of the three presidents who marked the previous high watermark, so to speak, of liberalism. Which one of the previous presidents do you think Obama most closely resembles, if any of them?
Well, probably Wilson. He has the coolness and detachment of the professorial Wilson, also the academic pretensions of Wilson, and he has, I think, FDR had, but LBJ conspicuously lacked, a sense of the fragility of the liberal project. And that, I mean, what's interesting about Obama in 2008 is that he knows that liberalism is in a period of decline. I mean, Reagan's victories and the shadow of those victories still hung over the American political system. Bill Clinton had been forced to abandon his health care plan. He had been forced to triangulate and move rightward and to adopt a much more conservative agenda in welfare reform, fiscal policy, monetary policy, and all kinds of things than he would have wanted to. And Obama thought of those concessions as weaknesses of Clinton's and mistakes that Clinton had made, because Clinton didn't realize that the Reagan Revolution was not here to stay. The Reagan Revolution would turn out to be a passing phase of resistance to liberalism. But his immediate problem, I think Obama thought, was that liberals themselves had lost faith. They no longer thought, this is picking up on Carter, they no longer thought that they were on the winning side of history, that the state was destined to keep expanding, to keep engrossing more of the GDP, to keep ministering in more ways to people's needs or felt needs. And so one of the reasons for the vacuousness of Clinton's slogans in 2008, hope, change, we are the change we've been waiting for, yes we can, which are all conspicuous by, as I point out, by their lack of subjects, objects, verbs, so it's hard to know what these things mean.
A change to what?
A change of what, to what, hope for what, yes we can, what? All of these things, they obviously beg these questions, but it was necessary for his project, as he understood it, to revive hope in change, to revive the possibility of aggressive, expansive liberalism, which a whole generation had lost touch with. And so, in a way, he had to revive the possibility of progress in order for progressivism to breathe again and to rise again in our politics. And that's and so, whereas LBJ was supremely confident that he represented the end of history and its certain and sure fulfillment, Obama was impressed, I think, by the the long bad patch that liberalism had been in, which cast serious doubt on its own self-confidence.
Right. It really dates back, before Reagan, it really dates back to the late 60s, right? I remember how growing up, seeing all the cliches, any country that can send a man to the moon can do X.
Yes, right.
My favorite version was any country that can send a man to the moon can abolish the income tax. But that's not the way it usually came out of New York Times editorials, right? But no, the thought was, and it was said almost as directly as, why should social science be any harder than rocket science?
Yes.
We're pretty good at one, turned out not so good at the other. And so anyway, continue. We're sort of reviving hope that the social science project can really work.
Yes.
Writ large.
And I think what's interesting about Obama is, to me at least, one of the interesting facets of him is how he holds in his mind contradictory things about liberalism. And if you read him closely, the full confusion of his mind manifests itself. But it's confusion at a high level. It's not ordinary. I don't mean to say he's out of touch with the reality around him or anything like that. This is a philosophical problem. And the easiest way to express it is this. On the one hand, he wants to believe in old-fashioned liberalism, as the progressive fulfillment of a kind of orderly process that culminates in some perfect world down the line. And the old progressives thought that this was a dimension of reality. This was not just pie in the sky idealism. This was in fact the unfolding of history. This is what was going to happen. Just as we can sort of know that scientific progress can continue indefinitely, we should know also that moral and political progress can continue indefinitely, but approximating some final state of perfection. But at the same time, the 60s have taught Obama that there is no such thing as inevitable progress, and that values are, in large part at least, relative, and therefore that confidence in the progressive project has to be based upon something other than confidence in progress itself. And this is where his thought becomes more troubled, let's say.
Well, now, let me sort of, that raises the next question I had on my mind, which is some of the contradictions you can observe can be thought of in a couple of ways. One is the political cynic says, well, he's obfuscating. He's disguising, the way any clever politician will, weaknesses in his argument that could cost him votes, cost his party votes. That's not hard to make out. On the other hand, it may be reflective of a deeper confusion that you. And so the question I want to ask is more broadly beyond Obama, but including Obama, is how deeply do today's liberals reflect on their philosophical premises? It seems to me that they don't very much.
Often they deny that they have any. I mean,
that helps.
The favorite liberal self-account is to say that there is no ideology here. Conservatives are the ideologues. They have theories, trickle-down economics, and other such things.
But we have heroes from our past. We celebrate
yes,
Friedman, Hayek, the others, and they don't seem to celebrate John Dewey or Herbert Crowley or even know who they were.
Yes, well,
even Reinhold Niebuhr, who
yes,
I think
you're
is
quite right about
worthy
that.
person.
And there is widespread ignorance, I think, on the left of their own philosophical heritage. And in fact, one of the purposes of the book was not simply to explain to conservatives what liberalism is, but to explain to liberals what liberalism is. And so that they can see the problematic qualities in it, and maybe they would be inspired to reflect on that and to adjust liberalism in a more philosophically coherent, or you might say patriotic direction. But to come back to this point, what the 60s and especially the civil rights movement, something that Obama never participated in, of course, because he was born in 1961. But he greatly admired it, and it became, for him as for many children of that era, the one part of American history that seemed unambiguously noble. The one thing that gave them confidence in the moral resources of the American character. But as far as progress goes, what it taught him and many other people was that you can't wait for history to deliver equality or justice to you. You've got to seize it. You've got to make history, not sit back and wait for it to unfold in a kind of Hegelian way. And so the desire to make history means that you've got to exert your will in history. And so rather than thinking that history is some large rational project that goes on without us and we're part of and only now dimly understand, that side of Obama was impressed by the fact that history is what you make it. And so when he comes to talk in The Audacity of Hope, his second book, about the Civil War, which is one of his intense periods of interest in American history, you find him saying about John Brown, about Frederick Douglass, about Abraham Lincoln, that they stood for absolutes. Their thought had an absolutistic quality to it. And even though he says absolute truth is the enemy of ordered freedom, absolute truth is the enemy of constitutional democracy, basically because anyone who believes in absolute truth, formerly known as truth, is an incipient fanatic. I mean, absolute truth leads straight to the jihad, the gulag, the pogrom, to the Inquisition, to the worst kinds of
And Obamacare.
oppression. Yes, right. No, that's one. That's absolute freedom.
Right.
And so, on the one hand, democracy is completely allergic to absolutes and absolute truth. But on the other hand, it depends absolutely on such things.
Right.
It depends on men like John Brown taking history by the horns and beginning a civil war if they could. And the sad part, or the part of his thought which seems to me tragic would be too strong a word, but awfully regrettable, is that Obama could not see any way out of this dilemma. That on the one hand, absolute truths are deadly. On the other hand, absolute truths are essential. And he couldn't see any way out because he couldn't. For him, there is no absolute truth. The key word is absolute. That is willed with great intensity. Now, fortunately, that sort of Nietzschean side coexists with a kind of moral confidence that segregation was wrong and desegregation was right. But that moral confidence is absolutely undermined by the other part of his thought. And he sort of lives, I think, with that awfully unhappy tension, contradiction.
I have to say that you have recovered your optimism in your hope that liberals might learn from your book and make adjustments. And I have to say, I am looking forward to the learned reflections on your book by Debbie Wasserman Schultz.